And then in the end, Islam has given the man this final choice because it had to be given to someone. But the choice gives him a greater responsibility, not a greater right to just rule as he wishes. He has to make decisions based on this consultation, as it would be in the case of the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He's consulting his ummah for any decision he makes, but in the end he must make the decision, but keeping in view all of these opinions he has received. This is so essential to almost, you think it's a wonderful theory, but it comes down to everything you're going to do in the household, because it's like an organization, it's like a business. You have to manage it, have to run it, and you have to do it with this kind of wisdom.
But unfortunately, you hear of cases where unfortunately some people actually abuse that right that they're given. The men are actually a bit too dominant, and they think they can just take control at home.
And that is also an unfortunate trend that has come from the societies from the East and has spilled into the West. It's a man's world. We have the might, so we have the right. The women are only here in this world as playthings, as sexual objects, and they have no voice. They have no concern with what I want to do as a man. Once that attitude is created, then it's a slippery slope downhill, and I can guarantee you, for more often than not, it'll end up in a crash that'll destroy that family.
Okay, Maulana Awal Sahib, you come from an Eastern background, so how would you like to respond to that?
That's very important. You should be sharing and caring, and mutual consultation is a must. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the policy making of the family, Islam has given this responsibility on the shoulders of the groom, the husband. But that is not an extra facility, it is a responsibility.
Okay. All right, Dr. Sahib, how do you learn to compromise within the family unit?
I mean, with anything, whether it's a family unit, whether it's your place of work, whether it's your place of play, you develop that over time. And as long as you both got that goal as to where we're going to end up, you will compromise, because you will know that if one person is not going to compromise, things are not going to. And I didn't want to use a personal example, but I'll use a personal example. In a health point of view, our daughter unfortunately was quite seriously ill, needed to have a bone marrow transplant, and my wife and I were both in a hospital for a year, closed in an confined place with her. And obviously it was quite emotionally stressful, and we were quite distraught. At that time we made a decision that both of us will not cry at the same time, because there's nobody to assist. So only one would be tearful, and it almost made us quite joyous dealing with the hardship of this ill child. Okay. So I just use that as an example of compromise.
Yeah. Okay, that's a valid point. I want to turn to the audience. Something that causes problems within marriage is family pressures. So how do you deal with that? Let's, Kaleem Sahib, what would you like to say on that respect?
I mean, with this, there's a kind of, it's a statement and a question really, is that the disagreements that happen, I mean, there's a process obviously in Islam of discussing those agreements and keeping them, then the hakaman and so on. But how what is the advice about keeping disagreements between the husband and wife, and at what stage should it be go out to the wider, if you like, the family and others?
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Let's get some other points as well. Naam Sahib, what would you like to say on that? Do you think the actual, when families do exert pressure, how do you deal with that?
Well, obviously, as I said before, I don't actually have primary experience, personal experience of this. But I have seen quite a number of people have various issues with their marriages. And I think it's something that does need to be tackled, obviously in a tactful manner and in a diplomatic manner as well. And I think if both parties become quite rigid, then there's less likelihood of there being compromise. And similarly, sometimes I think the ego can sometimes come in, unfortunately, as well, where then families get involved and they almost think that it's a them and us sort of a situation. So I think wherever possible, that sort of an attitude must not take place.
I would go back to Naam point.
Yeah.
And it's almost going back to the beginning, how you aim to build that together. And he's mentioned it becomes a them and us. If the both, again, the husband has been made in a way the primary decision maker, that responsibility is such that he is responsible to make sure it works. Even though it's an equal relationship, but he's got major responsibility. He has to bend over backwards to make sure it works. He can't take his bat and ball home with him and say it's not work. Okay, let's bring my mother into this, let's bring my father into this. There has to be an adultness and an independence.
So
and when
this aspect of family pressures, has that just come about recently, or do you think that's been around for?
I think the family pressures there's always a degree of family pressure. It's a question of how you interpret that. Somebody mentioned at the beginning in terms of living. Do you live independently? Do you live with a... People add cultural pressures, etc., as if when the husband and wife are independently living in their own, somehow it's in some way negating their duty to their parents. There is no way negating your duty to your parents. Your duty to your parents is not confined to a physical house. It's confined to wherever they are. And there's a psychology behind that as well. When a woman is marrying to for a mother example you take, she has that relationship with her son. It's something very special. And when he is then married, there is a psychology there. The love I have with him is now shared with another woman. And it's rightfully and lawfully shared. But there is a psychological element there, and in some places it's not properly accepted by both parties.
No, it's a really important issue. I mean, even Hazura Khalifa at the moment has mentioned this on a number of occasions, the rights of both and the family pressures that can lead to a breakup as well. As Hanif said, what kind of advice can you give to us?
I think one of the questioners raised a point, and we didn't address it, and that is, okay, what happens now? What do I do?
Right.
I'm a good man. I've tried my best to make the best choices, the best decisions. I've tried to compromise. I've tried to accommodate myself. I've bent over backwards to the point where one more inch and I'm going to break in half.
Yeah.
Where else can I go? And yet I find that there's still not domestic harmony here. I find that there's problems cropping up. There's personality clashes. Things like this is going on. So is there some other mechanism before we make the next step, which would be let's just end this relationship altogether, that one can begin to look at? And here, I find the answer to my khulafa is that you have to live in this world as if Allah is looking at us. We must look at this world, especially those who are closest to us. What even is mentioned in the early scriptures, forgive me what I have done as I want others to forgive. So I should forgive you as I want you to forgive me. And it's the same in a human relationship. Wherever I see the breakdown, and I've reached a point where I can't bear it anymore, I can't rectify it anymore, now my spiritual qualities must come to rise. And this is why I say marriage is such a wonderful, wonderful experience. It takes man through that grind, that mill, which he would never go through without that particular circumstance. Where he reaches the breaking point, and yet still he must try to find a way to go forward. He does it two ways, by humbling himself and by trying to act as if he can't see anything around him, as if the person who's doing him wrong is doing him good, in fact. And that can help him to get through some of these struggles.
Okay. Jazakallah for that point. Let me move to the audience as well. Do you think the problems and pressures that come out within marriage are just because at the first stage we were too intolerant, we were looking for someone, we had such high expectations and they didn't come to fulfill themselves, and that's what's actually been causing the problems within the marriage? Ali, have you like to add something to that?
I think it's very important for our young men to prepare themselves properly for marriage. And that preparation involves understanding their responsibility and managing their expectations and being selfless. Not thinking that this is my life, this is what my life involves, this is what I do, and the woman is going to come in and just be part of that. And understanding that you are opening yourself up to a whole new responsibility. When your new wife is coming to you, she's left her family, she's left her friends, she's left everything behind her, and you are now everything that she has got. That's a big gap to fill. I think one of the main problems that can cause the issues that we have is when young men don't prepare themselves for that responsibility.
Right, okay. Just want to get some views from people who aren't married here, or Asif at the back as well. I mean, looking forward to marriage, I mean, some people have such high expectations that when they don't come about, then they're so intolerant. They want everything to be perfect, and if everything is not perfect, that's it. They're like, I don't want to be involved in this marriage as well. So, do you think does that worry you if that's the trend that's happening at the moment?
To be honest, you have to be very realistic about that situation. As in, like Ali was saying, I think you have to prepare yourself mentally beforehand, psychologically as well. And I think the whole selfish factor have to be taken out of it as well. I think the main thing is you have to always consider the fact that, again, the girl has left her whole family, so you are virtually her new family now. So based on that fact, I think you have to be more open to more compromises, Well, that's all I can say, to be honest. I've got hands-on experience, but I'm theoretically speaking, I think that's what you have to go through, basically.